Here we are where we left off in the last video, where we prepared tumbler for work with epoxy. If you have not watched the video yet, I will leave the link in the description below. In this tutorial, we will be making glitter tumbler. These instructions are mainly for beginners who would like to watch every detail of this crafting. That's why I will try to avoid speeding up sections of this video as much as possible, and will let you see how the work in progress looks like in real time. Please feel free to craft along with me. We will start preparation of epoxy and then application of epoxy on the tumbler using our hand. Of course, we will use rubber gloves. Epoxy I am using in this video is made by Art and Glow. I have no association with this brand and I am not paid to promote their product. However, I have no problem to do so since I am happy with the product, and if you are just a beginner, you are probably looking for this kind of information anyway. To be honest with you, I had zero knowledge about epoxy before I was making my first epoxy purchase. I tried to do some research online and found out some epoxy needs to be activated by mixing part A and part B together. Some epoxy is activated by UV light and so on. Activating epoxy means to start a chemical reactions which will lead the epoxy to harden in transparent solid form, for which epoxy is known for. The Art and Glow epoxy is the kind which consists of part A and part B. You have to mix equal amount of part A and part B together. Once you mix them together in a mixing cup, you need to stir the liquid for about 2 minutes till the mixture starts getting warm. That's the sign epoxy is starting to activate. What I usually do to make sure the epoxy is warm enough before I apply it on a tumbler surface is I use a hair dryer and blow some hot air from the bottom of the mixing cup till I feel the liquid is warming up. Another problem I was facing was to find out how much epoxy I will need for one tumbler. I really wanted to have accurate information since I did not want to waste any epoxy. At the end of the day, epoxy is not cheap, but I just don't like to waste anything in general, even if it was for free. I read somewhere that 10 milliliters of epoxy is enough for one coat for one large tumbler, which would mean you would use 5 milliliter of part A and 5 milliliter of part B of epoxy. How do you measure 5 milliliter when the epoxy does not come with measuring cups was my next question. And now I had to do research. Which measuring cups are the best for epoxy? I found a bundle on Amazon which had silicone measuring cups of different sizes. As I found out later based on my experience, there is a reason why the measuring cups for epoxy are made of silicone. And that is because epoxy is very sticky, and when cleaning measuring cups, you will not be able to get everything out of the cups. I have used paper towels to clean the measuring cups from the inside, but that did not do the job 100%. What worked the best for me was to let the epoxy dry in the measuring cup, and once dried, it peels off the silicone surface fairly easily. If you guys have any other better option or way how to clean epoxy, please let me know in the comment section below. Once epoxy is evenly distributed on the tumbler surface, I usually give it a minute to see if the epoxy is not dripping down from the tumbler or epoxy is receding in certain areas and creating dry spots. If epoxy is receding, that could mean you did not prep the tumbler properly. Please check out my other video where I walk you through how to prep a tumbler. If epoxy is dripping, That could mean you applied too much epoxy, or your tumbler is pointing too much downwards and epoxy is simply sliding down, so you will need to adjust the tumbler position on the tumbler turner. If you have tumbler turner with around 5 rotations per minute, that usually prevents epoxy from dripping even with larger quantities. Once you feel happy how the epoxy looks like on the tumbler, you will move to the next step, which is application of glitter. In this case, my glitter is stored in a small plastic bottle, which looks like a salt shaker. This allows me to control the amount of glitter I am putting on epoxy quite precisely. Take a look at the size of this bottle. By the time we will be done with this video, I will use 3 of those for 1 tumbler. I'm letting you know so you have the right expectations how much glitter you will need in case you are about to buy one. Application of glitter is also the activity which tends to make the biggest mess. Be careful not to run a fan near you when using glitter, or you will have it all around your workspace. Once you covered the whole tumbler with glitter, let it dry overnight. Epoxy usually requires about 8 hours to dry, depending on the amount. On the following day, you can use a brush or a small sponge to scrape off the excessive glitter which is sitting loose on the tumbler surface and did not get in contact with epoxy. Once the loose glitter is removed, you can add another layer of glitter by repeating the whole process again, and that is, mix the epoxy, stir it to activate it, and then use your hand protected by glove to spread the epoxy on the surface on the tumbler, and finally apply another layer of glitter. Because the surface of the tumbler is pretty rough from the glitter, you may end up using a bit more epoxy to create a new smooth layer over the tumbler than the first time. To be safe, instead of 10 milliliters of epoxy, you can mix around 15 milliliters to make sure you have enough. The worst thing that can happen is to find out later down the road that you are missing just a small scoop of epoxy to cover one last dry spot of the tumbler, and you will end up making a new mixture again. Here I would like to highlight also how I have set up my 2-layer mats below the tumblers. On the top I have clean sheet of white paper. I am using paper because I can clearly see glitter that falls on it. The glitter which falls on a paper can be and should be reused. Glitter will nicely slide on the paper if you want to put the glitter back to the bottle. However, if you have drip from epoxy, the epoxy will soak through the paper and will create a mess on your work table. It is not the easiest task to clean it off afterwards. For that reason, I have placed a silicone mat under the paper. Silicone will ensure the epoxy will not soak through, and dried epoxy is very easily removable from silicone surface. On the other hand, once glitter falls on the silicone surface, it tends to stick and you will have to use soap and water to clean it off, which won't allow you to reuse the glitter which falls down off the tumbler. Hopefully it makes sense now why I'm using 2 protections under the tumblers instead of just 1. Once the second layer of epoxy is laid out, you can proceed with application of the second layer of the glitter. You may notice small spots which I missed yesterday, or in some spaces the layer of glitter from yesterday is so thin the primer paint is peeking through. That is completely okay. That's why we are doing the second layer. In this video I'm going for a simple glitter design where each layer of glitter has only one color. For the first layer I have chosen red color. For the second layer I have decided to go for a purple tone. I don't want my new purple glitter layer to completely hide the red layer from yesterday. Yesterday I have used 2 full bottles of red glitter for the first layer. For the second layer I am planning to use only about 1 bottle of purple glitter. I'm hoping for an interesting 2-color effect. Let's see how it will turn out. Don't forget to glitter the bottom of the tumbler as well. Once the second layer of glitter is laid down, it is up to you to decide when is enough. If you want to continue further and add additional color to the second layer, or wait again overnight and continue with a new layer next day. The possibilities are endless. The final step would be to add 1 more layer of clear epoxy on the top of the second layer of glitter. The epoxy would nicely seal the surface and create that glossy, even surface finish. Or maybe you like the tumbler without the last epoxy layer and want to keep the rough sandpaper-like surface, which is actually how I use my tumbler, which I made in this video. There are many other ways how to do tumblers, and I promise you, you will get a ton of new ideas after you finish your first one. Your confidence will grow and you will become open to experimenting. I would love to see your tumblers artwork. If you have a minute, please post them on my Facebook page where I can comment on them. Thank you for watching this video, and I'm looking forward to see you again.